They say the strongest warriors were not those with the sharpest blades, but those who could remain completely still. Long before the world learned to chase every impulse, before minds fractured under noise and distraction, there was a discipline born from emptiness. Karate-do, the way of the empty hand. A path where the warrior carries no weapon, no shield, no armor, only presence. Not to fight others, but to conquer the battlefield within. There was once a young man who sought strength because he feared weakness. His fists were quick, but his attention wavered like a candle in the wind. Thoughts pulled him apart. Anger distracted him. Desire weakened him. He asked his teacher, "How can I strike with power if my mind is always falling apart?" The master replied, "You do not lose because your body is weak. You lose because your mind is too full." A hand already holding something cannot grasp anything new. A mind crowded with noise cannot see the opening in front of it. To gain focus, one must first learn to empty. To see clearly, one must learn to be still. To act with power, one must learn to move without hesitation. If this path stirs something silent inside you, remain, walk with us, and let the lesson unfold. The training hall was quiet, but inside the young man's chest there was always thunder. His movements were sharp, but his gaze flickered. His breath rushed too quickly. Every stance he held trembled with something unseen. Not weakness of muscle, but weakness of mind. Thoughts swarmed him like flies. What if I fail? What if they see my fear? What if I am not enough? His fists were clenched, yet his spirit was scattered across memories, worries, imagined futures. The master watched in silence, as steady as stone, as calm as a mountain. When the student stumbled yet again, the master did not correct his technique. He simply said, "Your body is here, but your mind is everywhere else." The young man lowered his eyes, ashamed, because he knew it was true. The master continued, his voice like the rustling of leaves in a quiet breeze. "You fight with the strength of your hands, but you lose with the confusion of your thoughts." The young man had heard this before, but now it felt heavier, like a truth he couldn't shake off. The master motioned for him to sit. There was no rush, no urgency. Time seemed to stretch, like the air around them held its breath. The master spoke slowly, as though each word had to be savored. "The battlefield is not in your fists, it is in your mind. If you cannot still your thoughts, you will always be too late, and your body will follow your mind into chaos." The young man closed his eyes, trying to still the storm. It felt impossible. The noise too loud, the distractions too strong. "Breathe," the master said, and the silence between the words was louder than any noise. But stillness is not a void. It is the beginning of clarity, the moment when the storm has not yet passed. But when the first drop of peace begins to fall, the master spoke of emptiness. "Mu." The young man's brow furrowed. Emptiness sounded like nothingness, like an absence, a void. He had always thought emptiness meant surrendering, losing what made him, well, him. But the master's eyes, deep and unshakable, saw through him. "Empty your cup, and you can fill it. Keep it full, and there is no room for anything new." The student stared at the ground, confused. But to empty, doesn't that mean to lose? The master smiled faintly, as if sharing a secret known only to the earth and sky. Emptiness is not loss. It is the space for creation. It is the pause before the strike, the moment before the world makes its move. He motioned for the young man to follow him to the garden, where the first step was simple: slow breath, empty mind. In the quiet garden, the master knelt beside a stone fountain. He didn't speak, only gestured for the young man to join him. The water flowed gently, cascading in soft whispers. There was no rush, no hurry in the garden. The air was thick with calm, and for a moment, the young man simply stood, watching the slow movement of water. The master broke the silence. Look at the water. The stone beneath it does not push the water forward. It simply allows the water to pass. Emptiness, like this stone, does not force. It simply creates the space for life to flow. The young man closed his eyes, the sound of the water filling his ears. He breathed in, slowly, deeply, letting the air flow through him without resistance. His mind began to quiet, and in that silence, he felt something new, an openness, an invitation. You are not losing yourself by emptying, the master continued. You are clearing the way for the true self to arise. The student's eyes widened with understanding. Emptying was not weakness. It was the preparation for something stronger. But stillness, the kind of stillness that allows a blade to strike with precision, is a skill, one that requires mastery of the most subtle movements. The breath, the pause, the silence between thoughts. The master stood before the young man, his eyes as steady as the horizon. No words, only the slow rise and fall of his chest. Breath, the master said softly, is the bridge between the body and the spirit. It is where the mind finds its anchor. The student watched, still unsure, as the master slowly inhaled, holding the air within him as if it were sacred. The world seemed to pause around them. Inhale deeply. Feel the air fill you. Hold and release. The student copied, trying to match the master's calm. His breath caught in his throat, uneasy. His mind jittering with thoughts, distractions. Focus is not something you find. The master's voice cut through the chaos of the student's mind. It is something you return to. The young man struggled, but with each breath, a small sliver of clarity emerged. The master guided him through the process again. Slow inhale, the air filling his lungs. A brief pause, then the steady release. An unhurried exhale. With each cycle, the student began to feel a subtle shift. The storm inside him settled. Just a little, as though the rush of his thoughts were being carried away with each breath. The weight in his chest lifted. The mind's fog started to thin. He could almost hear the rhythm of his heartbeat, in time with the breath. "Do you feel it?" the master asked, his voice calm but piercing. The young man nodded, for the first time aware of the space between the thoughts, the stillness that grew with each breath. "Yes," the master's eyes gleamed, but there was no smile, just quiet approval. "This is your weapon. Use it in the storm, in the fight. When your ego rises, return to the breath. It will guide you." The young man held his breath for a moment, feeling the silence beneath his ribs, knowing that the true fight would never be with others. It was always with the self. But breath alone cannot carry you. The strike comes only when mind and body have aligned, when there is no longer separation between intention and action. The master's gaze never wavered as he demonstrated the strike. The movement was fluid, like the river carving through the earth, effortless yet purposeful. "The strike must come from the void," the master said, his voice firm but gentle. "When the mind interferes, the strike is already dead." The student struggled to understand. His body was strong, but his mind was still restless, pulling at him, trying to control every movement. The thoughts crept in, too loud, too insistent. What if I strike wrong? What if I'm too slow? The master watched, unblinking. "Mushin," he said. "No mind." The student froze mid-strike, the weight of the word settling on him like a heavy stone. What does it mean to strike without thought? The master smiled faintly. It means to act without hesitation, without fear, without ego. It means to move as the body was meant to move, without the noise of the mind. The master gestured for the student to begin again. Slowly, the young man lifted his arms, but this time he focused on the breath, not the strike. The movements came with ease, like a dance where the rhythm was not planned but felt in the body. The hesitation was gone. For the first time, the young man struck not with intention but with presence. No thought, no doubt, just the pure execution of the moment. The blow landed with perfect precision, yet there was no sense of victory, no feeling of success. It was simply done. The master nodded, a small shift in his eyes. That is Mushin. In that moment, there is no separation between the mind and the body. There is no need for fear or pride. Only movement, only presence. The student felt it. The space between the thought and the action had dissolved. The strike was no longer a product of willpower, but the natural flow of energy, moving as one. But true mastery is not in what is done. It is in what is withheld. Strength, in its purest form, is not the strike, but the restraint behind it. The student stood at the threshold of the world beyond the dojo. The wooden doors had closed behind him, but the lessons he had learned stayed with him, steady and silent. Outside, the world was louder, faster, more demanding. People pushed past him, their words sharp, their actions hurried. He was tested immediately. A stranger bumped into him, then glared, angry for no reason other than a brief interruption. The student felt the heat rise in him, his hand instinctively tightening into a fist. But then, something inside him shifted. He remembered the master's words, "You are the calm in the storm, not the storm itself." Instead of reacting, the young man stood still, his breath deepening. He locked his eyes with the stranger, and in that moment, something in the air changed. His presence was unmistakable, calm, focused, unmoved by the chaos around him. The stranger, confused by the stillness, looked away. No words, no fight, no anger. The day unfolded, and more challenges came. A sharp word from a colleague, a small betrayal from a friend, even an obstacle in his path that threatened to unsettle him. But each time, the student remembered the lessons of the dojo. His body no longer tensed, his breath no longer quickened. In every instance, he returned to the stillness, to the presence he had cultivated. The world moved around him, but he stood rooted like a tree in the wind. His strength wasn't in reacting, in overpowering the world around him, but in the restraint he carried in his heart. His movements were intentional, his words measured. He didn't need to prove himself. The power was in his ability to hold his ground, to remain unfazed. In those moments, he knew, strength is not in how loud you are, but in how quiet you remain when the world demands chaos. A weapon can be taken, strength can fade, but the one who has mastered the mind holds an unshakable power that cannot be touched.